When it comes to the issue of abortion, I literally am the 1% that is used 100% of the time to justify abortion. But yet, the circumstances of our conception never change the condition of our worth. My biological mother experienced the horror and the violence of rape, and yet still was courageous enough to give me life, to give me the gift of adoption.
I think about the fact that his mother went through 9 months of an incredibly traumatic pregnancy. And even through all of the difficulty of that, she found the courage to choose life.
Ryan Baumberger's story is a testament to the pro-life belief that even though the circumstances surrounding conception can be tragic, human life is still sacred.
I was rescued, I was adopted and loved, and grew up in an amazing, diverse family that taught me a lot of things. I grew up in a tiny little family of 15. I have 6 brothers, I have 6 sisters, 10 of us were adopted, and we were all adopted out of, well, brokenness, because that's how adoption happens, you know, both in the natural and the supernatural. And what adoption does is it brings healing and restoration.
He is so appreciative of not only the gift of life, but the gift of adoption that his birth mom gave him. I know that my life would be radically different if I wasn't married to my best friend, the father of my children. We've walked through birthing biological kiddos, and also walked through adopting some of our children. And I know that the world is a better place because Ryan's in it. And he really is that tangible example of good things can come from very difficult situations.
Like many children of adoption, Ryan tried to find his birth mother.
I wrote a letter to my birth mom and recently published it. I've never met my birth mom. I searched for her years ago, and the search came up negative in that there was no response. So I don't even know if she's alive or if she chose not to respond, which I would understand, you know, considering those circumstances. But as a creative, I've tried over the years, how do I thank her? I've tried to figure out, how do I express my gratitude to a woman who chose courageously to be stronger than abortion. And so the letter really is just my heart about, you know, the love that I grew up with, and you know, the love that I have with my wife and my kiddos, and how her singular decision is continually causing these beautiful reverberations. She could have chosen what the world thinks is an easier route. I don't think choosing abortion is an easy thing, but she made a decision that she could never fully comprehend at the moment. And a lot of times when we're in the middle of pain and confusion, we're fixed in that immediate. And I'm sure she couldn't see the next month or the next year, but here we are decades later, and her courage is still generating beauty. So I just hope one day she actually reads that letter.
My heart is always moved when I speak with other women who have been through the situation that Ryan's birth mother went through, and the choices that they've chosen to make. It's amazing to hear so many testimonies of women who share that one of the things that was really redemptive in such a dark season of their life was birthing a child.
Ryan and his wife Bethany co-founded the Radiance Foundation, a pro-life group that seeks to foster a culture where human life is valued and has purpose.
The Radiance Foundation is a life-affirming educational nonprofit organization that my wife and I founded about 14 years ago now, and we are just passionate about illuminating the truth that every human life has God-given purpose. So whether you're planned, unplanned, able, disabled, you have purpose.
It's our heart to illuminate, educate, motivate. So our heart is to illuminate the simple truth that every life has intrinsic irrevocable value. And so we educate about a myriad of social issues, and we cover abortion, adoption, fatherlessness, poverty, all in the context of God-given purpose. And our prayer is that we would motivate people to not just have faith, not just have knowledge, but to actually walk it out and impact their sphere of influence.
Currently residing in Loudoun County, Virginia, the Baumbergers are on the forefront of the pro-life battle, all while raising a family of their own.
Now I'm an adoptive father. I have 4 kiddos. 2 of my kiddos were also adopted. And so I'm very passionate about the fact that life has purpose, whether you're planned or unplanned.
We have my oldest, who's 17, Radiance. We have a 14-year-old Makai, a 13-year-old Aaliyah, 11-year-old Justice.
Our kids are involved in our ministry. They're involved in the Radiance Foundation, so they travel with us and they get to understand these issues from a first-person perspective. They get to meet some of the most amazing people around the country, people who've given their lives to serving, serving others, serving God, serving the kingdom, and it's really remarkable.
And we're just so honored that the Lord would give us the opportunity to serve Him the way we do, not just working full-time for the Radiance Foundation and working in ministry, but to be their parents full-time and to be able to walk through the highs and the lows and the challenges of parenting has been such a blessing. And for Ryan and I, it is so important that even as we speak about difficult social issues and we go out and we talk to different groups of different sizes, at the end of the day, in the walls of our home, we want what we're speaking out there to be alive in those walls first and foremost. And so we love the challenges that life brings, but we're just glad that we're walking through this together.
There are a lot of people who embrace the lie of abortion because it's often in the abstract. My prayer is that my life actually makes it tangible. I'm that tangible example, being that fringe example, having been conceived in rape. I'm something that is often in the abstract for people. But that's why when I speak in college campuses and conferences and churches, I'm right there in that flesh and blood example of what so many people have rejected, or the lie that they've embraced that I don't deserve to live. And so I'm always approaching this compassionately because I understand a lot of times when we embrace a lie, it's because we just don't know. It's an ignorance because we aren't aware of the truth. So my hope is that I'm able to speak that truth and be that living proof that God enables triumph to rise from tragedy all the time.